Hello everyone. Whew. Welcome to Monday Musing 24? 24 it is. And you know what? A car goes past as soon as I start speaking. It happens every single time, I swear. Well, welcome to everyone. Today we are going to be... I'm slightly out of focus, aren't I? Today we're going to be chatting a little bit about preparing for tournaments. So, looks like I've got some kind of awful camera fail as well. I don't quite know what's going off at the moment, so give me a second to tidy that up and we will... Whoa! There you go, we're getting there in the end. We're gonna have to try and work this one out. So there we go, we're back in focus, and that's all that counts. So maybe just booting it around a bit worked. Right, let's catch up with the chat and see who's in and who's not and who can hear me okay. Let's just have a look. Blimey, Phil's grown a lot since Saturday. I'm a little bit bigger than Saturday's little tiny thumbnail of me. Sam's Saturday thumbnail, shall we call it that? Steve Forrest and Reaper28 were in the chat nice and early tonight, catching up on all sorts of stuff. Common also joined us and looked excited to see a room father on the thumbnail. Well, it's to a degree. My hobby desk is all about the Fire Slayers at the moment. Who else have we got in there as well? Gabriel Priest has joined us. Acharya has joined us. So Amit's in there. Hello, Amit. How are you, mate? Reaper28, I think I've mentioned. Coleman was in there as well. He's nearly back. He is back. Who else have we got in the chat at the moment? We'll just keep catching up. A lot of chat actually tonight. It was just Homish has joined us. Ralph has joined us. Orc Boys is in there as well, saying hi and hello to each other. Who else have we got? Scott is in there. Scott Bile. Let me see. I scrolled and then lost everyone. So we've got Sean Blake and Mark Potter is joining us. Hey Mark, how are you doing? Paolo's in there. 01 saying hello to everyone. Rower is in there as well, saying evening all, tuning in from work. Don't get caught. Or is it okay to tune in from work? Is that perfectly fine? I hope so. What else have we got? Decimus Maximus in the evening. What was that about you getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning on Saturday? We'll find out what that was about in a bit. But I've got a feeling, was it to find out on the what was going off at LVO maybe? Sean Blake is in there saying that the beer is cold, and I'm not saying the rest, but is ready and the wet pallet's ready for the show. So Mark Potter. Steve Forrest has just donated £30. Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you very much. That will go wonderfully towards tournament prep. Thank you very much, mate. You're a star, seriously. I don't know what we do without all the donations, to be honest. It really does help. Fellhate is in there saying hi to the chat and everyone. Karanis is in there as well. Yes. And what else have we got as well? Coleman. I think we've covered. I was just having a look there. I'm not sure what's happened to my notifications, but I think they might be right. I don't know. I do know on Saturday, Patrick gave a crazy donation of £333 to go towards a new army, or probably more than towards it. I'm sure that will cover a new army for Sam, so that was fantastic as well. But thank you to everybody who donated on Saturday. It was a bit of a mind bender, that one. What else have we got? Liam is in there. Hey Liam, how you doing? And so is Wazadi saying evening, Phil. Scott, there's a few things coming in as well. Reaper saying don't forget the salt. You definitely need salt for the tournament. Did you say anything? People making jokes. Oh no, I've just found out what Steve's donation for. It's for a new magma drop. We'll talk about that in a bit. We'll talk about what happens when you start hurrying your prep as well. Liam's here. I think we've covered, and Patrick is in there as well. So thank you very much all for joining me tonight. That's wonderful, because I do know Mondays are a little bit one way or the other for people, really. But for me, it's great to start the week like this. I always kind of finish work on the first day, and I'm always a little bit tired, and I'm heading home from work, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, show to do. But I soon get into the swing of things, and I soon start to get really excited about the show, because I get to meet all you wonderful people in the chat, and get to have a good old hobby chat as well. Patrick says, hello, Steve. Out to pre-order the new Battle Tome next Saturday? Question mark. I'm sure Steve will be pre-ordering the new Battle Tome next Saturday. I've got a wee problem going off with technology at the moment, so I'm hoping everybody can hear me. Give me a second, because I just need to click on some buttons, and I am hoping that that's going to work. So you're just going to have to give me a second, people, while I just test something. There you go. That's all good. Okay, right. Well, maybe we should start with talking a little bit about what tonight's show is about. So if I click on that and I click on that, so tonight's show is about preparing for a tournament. That's what I want to talk about, which means I want all the wonderful people who are watching the show live tonight to get onto the chat and give me their hints and tips for preparing for a tournament, because this this show isn't just about me waffling on about what I think. It's about what all you wonderful people think as well. So I'd like to hear your advice on preparing for a tournament, because I'm certainly not an expert at this. I've only ever attended... Oh, okay, I think I've done about 3 tournaments in total. He says rattling a bag. That's really bad form, isn't it? So I've done about 3 tournaments in total. I did really well in the very first tournament we did. We played in doubles, and it was myself and Jack, and this was about 3-4 years ago now, when we'd only just got into the hobby, and we did a doubles Warhammer 40k tournament, and we came joint second. I think it literally was a joint second as well, so we did really well. So it was quite exciting. And Patrick has decided to rope us all into going along to the doubles tournament at the end of March for Age of Sigmar. And so far, the armies are, for those of you who have not been tuning in, Patrick is taking Zeech along with Sam, who is taking, help me out here, Bray Herds, the Bray Herds, is it? Which is essentially the Beastmen army. I am taking, wait for it, not Caradon Overlords. I am taking Fire Slayers, because foolishly I thought they were closer to being finished than the Caradon Overlords, but I'm not sure they are. And I am joining up with Rachel and her Seraphon, so Fire Slayers and Seraphon. That is, for those of you who know, is a change of plan, because originally it was going to be my Sylvaneth, but I decided that Sylvaneth weren't great in a doubles scenario, seeing as though the power of Sylvaneth is in the Wildwoods, and the Wildwoods harm everything that isn't Sylvaneth should magic be cast nearby. So the last thing I wanted to be doing is dishing out mortal wounds within my own army. So I didn't want to restrict Rachel's maneuverability, and decided to swap armies. So that's why I've inherited some sort of half-built, half-converted Fire Slayers from Sam, and I'm currently putting a force together. What else have we got? Oh, hold on a second. We've got some Wargamer Online tags coming up, so let's catch up. Thank you, Steve, for the donation one more time. Thank you very much, mate. Derpimus Maximus said he had to get a flight to London as part of his brother's up-and-coming 40th birthday. It's on Friday. Went to see Gloryhammer on their only UK date this tour. What? Derpimus, does that mean you're in the UK? Or were you in the UK? And if you were in the UK, if you were in London, why don't we get together? Okay. Right, what else have we got going off? Derpers, despite the blessings of Papa Nergal, I'd rained down upon me during the tour. They did a great show, and I knackered my legs going around HMS Belfast. Too many ladders. Ah, oh, tragic. Strangely enough, I hurt my leg this weekend. I think it's just one of those weekends. Right, Ralph Hummel says, tournament prep, stock the fridge up and buy enough pretzels. Brilliant advice. The one thing I didn't cover, actually, is keeping yourself fed on snacks. Roa says, night shift, no management present, so it's fine. Well, that's all fine and dandy then. That's brilliant. Furious George says, how do you prepare for a tournament? You make sure that Patrick is on your team. I like that. Can I do that? It doesn't work, does it? I don't know why doesn't that work? Somebody tell me. Does it work if I do that? Oh, I'm gonna have to move it. Can I do that? There you go. We're on track again. Oh, what's happened to the backdrop and everything? Let's just swap back. Messed up there. Let's go back to this. I tell you, I had a last-minute tech fail, as you can see, and it happens every time, 5 minutes before the show starts. My machine restarted for an update, and it was doing that whole, we're updating you, and I didn't tell it to update as well, so that was the frightening thing. Scott says, keep reviewing your special rules to ingrain them into your memory so you remember them when you need them. Good point. And at the end of the day, somebody once told me the people who win tournaments are the ones that can remember all of their rules. Elstonation is saying evening, so is Wolfgar. And DJ the Lucky One is in there as well, saying hi all. I'm just double checking I haven't missed anybody else. And if I have, just put a bit at the bottom saying, hey, you missed me. And Frost and Fist is saying, hey, they're beautiful people. So there we're at. Right, where are we at? Well, let's do, it's 9:10. That's cool. Let's do 20 minutes, I think, on some basic themes, I think. And I've not put too much together for tonight. Like I say, I'm kind of seeing it as a bit of a chance to chat. Okay, for me, first things first, get started straight away. That's a definite requirement. At the end of the day, the tournament is an absolute impending deadline. So I don't think put off for tomorrow what you can do today. I've got straight onto the army as quick as I can. There's a lot to do, and I have 8 weeks to do it in, basically. That's the thing. Less than 8 weeks, I think. I haven't even looked at the calendar. I'm so afraid of looking at the calendar. My objective is to try and get the army done in 4 weeks, giving me 4 weeks of test play and those kind of things. So that's the plan, but certainly get started straight away. And a good place to get started is learn the rule pack. So for me, I think it's... we got signed up to the tournament. The rule pack's available on let me just see if I can find it. Yes, there it is. So for us, because it's nice and organized at Warhammer World, let's just see if I can get this on. There you go. So we are all nice and set up for a doubles tournament, 24th to the 25th of March. It's based at Warhammer World, which is an awesome venue. And the good news is there's a whole bunch of rules. There's a bunch of wonderful welcome information, which is always good to help you out. But I think the other thing that's important is something like get to know the rules in terms of what is the format, what's the army size, what's the battle plans that are going to be played. That's a really big one. We'll come back to that later. The number of games you're going to be playing. Also check that your selecting armies are legal, because you can waste a lot of time painting and preparing models that don't fit within the format. These are the things that have been going through my head. As I've said, I'm not a super expert on this, but this is what I've done. I've sat down and gone through the rule pack. I've checked that I've got all the latest handbook rules and the war scrolls are up to date, and I'm using the right format and the right structure. Good news is hot meal provided on both days. How fantastic is that? There's painting competitions, so I want to be entering at least one of those painting competitions. I think I can only really enter one of them, I think. Saturday night entertainment, that's going to be good, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And there's some house-to-house rules in there as well. Get familiar with those. As you can see, we're measuring base to base, so this is the official Warhammer venue. Do indeed work base to base when it comes to tournaments. And you should count the model's own torso, arms, legs, and head as well. Wings, weapons, banners, and so on should be ignored. So we're measuring vertically. So there you go. Excellent stuff. A little bit about Sylvaneth Wildbuds, making sure you get your forest right. That was relevant to me. It really isn't relevant to me anymore. And then, as you can see, it goes on, and there's a whole bunch of rules in there. The rules for one is in effect, etc., etc., etc. So spend a bit of time, I think. Learn the rule pack, as I said earlier. Has it made a difference on what I'm going to do so far? Yes, it has a little bit, because I went back and double checked the General's Handbook 2017 and discovered a bunch of extra rules for my Fire Slayers. So how exciting is that? And it's one of those things. I'd got the handbook and I hadn't paid a lot of attention to it because I'd checked it for all the stuff that was relevant to me. And I didn't necessarily check it for anything else. So it was good to go back there and discover that. And I've got to thank Sam a little bit for that as well. He helped me with that. Crikey. Probably the next thing as well. Plan your lists, I suppose. And I say lists as in plural because, what I've been doing is working out that there's 2 or 3 ways I can play this army. I mean, if I was to look at you know, the army in itself, I've got 1,000 points. I've got to make sure it actually sticks with 1,000 points. So let's just get that in there, because that will update how many battle lines I need. That will update how many leaders I'm allowed, and how many allies, and how many behemoths, etc., etc. So, I mean, here's one option on my list. This is, let me see, this is exactly 1,000 points. This is a Runefather on Magmadroth. Really powerful central piece of the unit. Also, I think gives me an opportunity to enter the painting competition, because it's a nice, solid, big model that I could have a lot of fun with. So I'm thinking not just about the game, but I'm thinking about, you know, the ways of scoring points as well, or just actually having fun while you're at the tournament. I've got 2 Rune Smiters in there, which gives me the ability to teleport 2 units at the start of the game, which is cool. Which is why I've now gone for sort of 2 large Volkite Berserker units. I think I will probably do that, because I haven't got the models to do all of them with the hand axes. Either way, the 20 models give me the 4-up feel no pain save, essentially, until I take a single wound, and then I'm down to the 5-up, but at least I'm down to the 5-up for 10 models, so worth going for the larger unit. The good news is should I take the Runefather, then the half guard become battle line as well, so that really helps out. So I actually, you know, I'm pretty covered on battle line, no problem at all. 3 out of the 2 requirements, so that's good. But like I say, don't just work on one list, play around with the list a little bit. So I've got a second option here, and as you can see, what I've got in here is I've added a Runeson on Magmadroth, which of course, typical, isn't it? Let's just get the 1,000 points in there, because it'll put the limits in again. That does indeed fill my 2 behemoth slots. I do have to remember that, but and it also fills the leadership slot as well. And what I've had to do is drop the berserkers down to 10 models each, and put in 5 half guard in there, just to kind of so I'm much less in terms of troops, much less in terms of wounds, I think. But you know, there's an alternative. Why have I messed around with a bunch of alternatives, you ask? Well, I suppose in many respects, I'm trying to think, you know, when I'm building my list, what synergies are available in the army, how you know, how do they support each other, can I get benefits from those units? The Rune Smiters give me the ability to teleport to, you know, 2 units, which is pretty powerful, but they also give me re-rolls as well. That's quite important on the large bubble. The Runefather gives me a bubble effect of fun as well, so that's worth, you know, looking at how I'm going to utilize those armies together. Saying that, the reason I've done a couple of lists is it, you know, that variation gives me an idea of the models I need to get done. I definitely need to get somewhere in the region of 50 or 60 troops done. You know, I need to be getting those 50 troops done, really. I need those 2 units of 20 and possibly a unit of 10 of the gun guys, which are the half guard. So there's a good starting point, but I know that's the maximum. I don't think I'll be taking any more than that, not in 1,000 points. I think I have to pay too much of a sacrifice against the leaders. I do know I need to get 2 Rune Smiters done. So what have I done? I've converted a Rune Smiter model and had the original Rune Smiter model, just so it's a nice bit of variance on the table. So that put that task to the top of the list. I think the next thing up really was knowing that there's 2 Magmadroths to be done, which is cool because I have 2. That's good news. Although, as Steve may have hinted, I've slightly broken one. A little overambitious on the conversion. There you go. But it's done now. That's so bad. Needless to say, the Magmadroths are a big paint job. So that really does add to the task. So maybe I need to get some play testing done. Is it really worth painting that extra model? But if I always kind of argue, if you're painting one, you might as well paint 2, especially when it comes to the large models. You know, I'm going to be using airbrushes, I'm going to be using washers and those kind of things. And if you've got the pot, you know, if you've got the paints in the pot, as they say, it's just as easy to do 2, really, and you're kind of in the flow of things. So we shall see how we go. The next thing is pay attention to the scoring. In other words, how is the tournament scored? You know, I know from the rule pack there's 30 points to be scored from winning overall, but there's also 10 points to be gained from how you play and whether people like your army, their favorite army. So that it pays some attention to that at the very least. I want my army to look thematic and cool. Because it could count. The other thing is really how does the scenario score? is, it's going to be using the standard scenarios from the General's Handbook 2017. So I really need to spend some time and go from that and work out whether my army is going to be the right shape to be able to score, to be able to win the game on points, if you like. And the other thing I need to work out is basing. I need to get, I think that's kind of a little bit out of the way. But what is the basing scheme? There is a best army, and they certainly say that the basing of the two factions brought together in the doubles in this tournament could have an impact. But yeah, not quite sure what I'm going to do about that at the moment. I think the other thing you probably want to bear in mind as well is when you sort of plan your list is what's your budget. I'm quite lucky. Sam gave me a whole bunch of these little fellas, so I've got a big tray of fellas that I need to work on. And as you can see, Sam had converted them, so he chopped the head feathers off of all of them, which on its own is not the end of the world. But I kind of like the head feathers, so I've had to go back through and refit all the little head feathers and all the rest, the hair and the rest on the hat. So there has been quite a bit of work going back in the models, and I'm still undecided yet whether Sam's paint is thin enough to essentially just paint straight over, or whether I need to strip and reprime them. Part of that will be informed by how much time I've got left. I think the other thing you can probably pay a little bit of attention to is playstyle as well. That's going to impact my list. It's okay to have the models, but will I enjoy playing them in that way? This army is not terribly shooty, for instance, and generally I like a bit of shooting in the army, but I do have the ability to pop up all over the board, so that's kind of a silver neffy part of the fun, isn't it? I can at least have some fun with that. And I'm also used to having a monstrous centerpiece as well. I always kind of like that format, so I think playstyle is going to be nice for me with this army. And another point is just is it even achievable? I've got 4 or 5 weeks to get this army together. If you've already got an army built, brilliant. Then you can move on from all of this, really. I mean, other than producing your list, but if they're built and painted and you're happy with them, then jump on from all of those things. Let's jump to the chat and see what people are saying. And we'll go from there. So what have we got in the chat? What's going off at the moment? Oof, right. Tournament prep. Stock the fridge up. I think we've done that one. Keep reviewing the special rules. Thank you very much, Scott. We'll come back to the rules list at some point, but as I was saying there, review the tournament pack as well, because there are sometimes rules within this tournament pack that have an impact. Derpimus Maximus says he lives just outside Glasgow, flying to London. Oh, well, that's better. Yeah, I see your point. Okay, then. Maybe next time we'll try and catch up, though. We're a really close trip to London, really. It's about 40 minutes on the train maximum. Steve says, haven't technically started yet, waiting for the new book. Well, pressure's on, Steve, but I know you've got painted models, so maybe that's as much about structuring your army once you know when it comes through. Acharya says, 1, get started right away. Fail. I've seen you buying boxes, but you need to get on it, dude. You need to get on it. You seriously do. Open those boxes. Oh my goodness, he's actually even admitting they're still wrapped up in plastic. Ralph says, measuring base to base in AOS is a bit of a laughing stock at GW tournament now. No, I don't think so. I'm quite glad. I'm quite happy they're doing that. It makes you wonder whether you get into General's Handbook 2018, whether they just actually make it a game-wide rule. I've never really understood the baseless sort of measuring thing. It's never really worked for me. Just makes life easier, doesn't it? Steve says, tip, learn the match play scenario, including win conditions. This will steer your list building. Exactly. If you're going to need to hold objectives, you're going to need units to do that. You're going to need units that can survive and hold objectives if you need to hold an objective, because there's cumulative scoring, which is extremely painful if you lose those objectives. So think about it. As we know from the battle report I did with Patrick, you scored in that game by putting a hero on an objective. Well, guess what? If you only take one hero because you've completely spammed your troops, then the best you can hold is one objective. I think one thing I haven't mentioned in this particular instance that has relevance, I suppose, is it's a doubles tournament as well. So work with your partner to help build that list. understand each other's armies, I think, get to know their rules as well. Because I think that's useful, because you can help each other out. If I see Rachel forgetting something, I can say, hey, don't forget you can roll to do that, and don't forget that's +1 over there. And hopefully if she spends a bit of time looking through my armies, she'll be the same. She'll be saying, don't forget you need to stay within 20 inch of him so you can have the bonus, etc. That's a good way to... It's not often you can have somebody stood at your shoulder helping you out. So learn each other's armies is probably a good one for doubles tournaments, certainly. Right, what else have we got going off? Coleman says, I'd take the Rune Smiters with the Forge Keys instead of the Runic Iron. The reroll wound buff then stretches 20 inch. Yes, sorry, actually I hadn't done, I hadn't updated the sheets there. Actually, they will indeed have the Forge Key, and in fact I've modelled them holding the Forge Key as well, just for clarity, because I think WYSIWYG is really important for tournaments. People need to see that, especially if they know their army. Wolfgar says, wow, things have changed since I competed in a tourney, which was about 20 years ago. That was at Warhammer World as well. Is it still in Nottingham? Warhammer World is indeed still in Nottingham. Yes, it is. And the tournament is held at Warhammer World. Just checking. Worked for Games Workshop Norwich and got to Nottingham as much as I could. Yes, I don't blame you. Particularly did back then you have the staff discount, because that makes this hobby a hell of a lot cheaper. Blame Sam for the conversion fail. It's not Sam's fault. It was me getting over ambitious with a model. I could have left it. I tried to push it a little bit further, and you were on the chat with me, Steve, so you knew exactly what happened when I hit that bit. Acharya says, if the tournament is scored on looks and personality, I won't bother turning up. You're a beautiful fellow, Acharya. Don't you say that. Sounds like a lot to do. Do you need a hand with painting them? Thank you, Elster Nation, but no. If I want to enter them into painting competitions, the rules very clearly state you must have built and painted all of your models. I think that will exclude me from being able to enter. This is the point I was making earlier. I can't enter the painted army competition simply because the army is considered the cumulative of both players, and then individually both players on a team need to have painted their army. And because Rachel has had help in building and painting, I think that will exclude us. So that's a bummer, but there are painting competitions for characters and such, and behemoths. What's the rule on conversions, and how much conversion or third-party bits? No third-party bits. It doesn't specifically say that, but it does say any conversions, you need to contact them and let you know you've done a conversion. I dare say if they see a third-party bit, they'll be saying they don't want to see that at all. So there'll be no third-party bits on mine. The rule on conversions I've just stated, you contact them and they say whether they want to see the model or not. So I think it's about how far you've done. Like I was working on my Magmadroth for the Rune Farm, and I wanted it to be much beefier and bigger, so I was sort of adding bits and spikes all over it and those kind of things, but they're all extra bits you get in the kit, so I can't see them having a problem with that conversion. Okay, what else? Right, well, what else is going off? Luke Jones says, yup, which may be too earlier, who said hi everyone. So hi Luke Jones, how you doing, mate? Right, what else have we got going off then? We talked about get a hobby plan in place. That was the next one for me. So you may have your lists and you'll have your army planned out. The next challenge is to get it ready for the tournament. So tonight I sat down and I got a calendar out and I was working, what do I need to get done by what weekend? So the kind of things I was thinking about is building, getting everything built. So, for instance, one of the tasks that I had on my list to do tonight before I go to bed is to mount all of these wonderful little fellows on offcuts of sprue. So, as you know, I can then stick my cocktail stick in the bottom of it, which I like to do, and that gives me the ability to put them in paint holders and get round them all with airbrushing if I'm base coating, because you can kind of get to the underneath of the model, which is a big deal. It's a big deal when you've got more availability. And I do like the idea of using off-cut little bits of sprue which are super glued on, because it just gives them a lot of rigidity. You can hold them quite firm without the base. Plus it means I can work on all the bases separately, which is a big deal because I've got a lot of bases to do. I've got my plan for building. I've got models on the way because I don't have all the models I need. I only have 10 of the Volkite Berserkers with axes and shield, and I only have 10 of the Warpick Volkite Berserkers with axes and shield. And as you can see, I've not got around to doing the little base for these yet, although I have been swapping heads back on them. So I need to do 10 each, build 10 more each of those to be able to do the second option on my list, which at the moment is my preferable option. So as I've said, if you've got the paints out, if I'm doing 10, I might as well do 20 and get on with it. So, got to think about the building. I know when the models are arriving, or at least I hope I know when the models are arriving. Should be with me by the weekend. I want to be going into next week knowing that for all intents and purposes, minus a few conversions and possibly some extra base pieces and stuff like that, my army is built. So it's a busy weekend for me ahead. Painting. The other thing I've done is work on a painting schedule, and I want to I'm going to be working slightly different with this. So I've already been working on a painting plan. So for instance, I will be priming and base coat and mid coat the entire army. Then I'll be subdividing the army and going on to shading, highlighting, and detail work unit by unit. And that's just because, again, I want to get all the airbrushing done. I want to get that done and dusted before I move on to the hand painting and all the rest. And I've also got a little slotting there that will be about getting the bases done. So it's okay getting the army done, but I don't want to rush the bases. I want the bases to look good. I want them to look thematic. I have made a crucial decision. I won't be basing identical to Rachel. There was a temptation to almost produce bases for my entire army and pin them to those bases so I could then swap them later to a volcanic army, because Rachel's army is based on help me out here, jungle bases and stuff like that. And so there is a temptation to kind of do an entire set of bases which I then rebase the army to lava, but I think the army is just going to look better on lava bases. So I know I'll lose something in terms of not looking 100% unified with Rachel's army, but I think if I had another 2 weeks I'd probably consider doing the extra basing. But right now I've made the decision to go with what suits my army, I think. So there you go. That's my hobby plan. But that's not the end of the hobby plan. I've got to think about how I'm going to transport them. Getting them built is a big part of it. Making sure they get to the tournament safely is another part. I have to say, I would really love to use one of the A cases that we had reviewed, that Sam reviewed the other week, but he's still fulfilling, I think, the very last of the Kickstarters, which means he's not in a position to be selling cases yet, which is a bit of a shame, because I'd have absolutely loved to be able to take this army in probably 1 or 2 A cases, if you know what I mean, and I could have just magnetized the bases and I wouldn't have had the situation of trying to get them into a KR case. These are a bit like Sylvaneth, very, very spiky and also painfully delicate in some areas. The war picks and all the rest are just so prone to breaking. I've had 2 or 3 break already just in handling them at the moment. So slightly concerned about that. And I don't have an answer yet to how I'm going to transport the model yet. I'm half tempted to make my own case. I don't know how I'd do that, and I don't know whether I've got the time, but I do need to have a think about it. I do like the way the A case works. I have to say, the idea of trays that you magnetize your base and your arm is transported nice and neatly. Why do I like that? Because Patrick traveled all the way over from Germany and his beautiful, delicate Zeech army arrived in perfect condition. He had 1 casualty in the entire transportation. So think about how you're going to transport it. Get that in your mind. I think there's another point on transport. It should be really transport and storage. You've got 5 games to do over the space of 2 days. The ability to clear away quickly is important. The ability to set up quickly is important. Consider that. And that's the other disadvantage, if you like, of having, something like the KR case with the... I love how the green screen's kicking in there. It's quite freaky, isn't it? Disadvantage is it takes time. And the more you rush, the more you're likely to damage a model. So I do need to have a think about how I'm going to do that. Display. People build army trays and things like that. Will I have time to do one? Question. I don't know. No idea at all. It'd be kind of cool if I had time to do it and do a little display case or a little display tray that, I can actually deploy from as well. That would be kind of cool. but I'll have a think about that as well. And last and not least in that hobby plan is time, and we'll talk a little bit about what you need time for, but primarily the main thing I'm most worried about is time to get some practice games in. So I need to get this army built and done so I can get some practice games in. Now, I've never proxied in a game, and I think I'm the closest to considering proxying in a game. So there's possibility of Jack giving me a game where I will use my Sylvaneth, but I will use them as Fire Slayer, so the Tree Lords become the Magmadroths, and the Sylvaneth, the Dryads become the Volkite Berserkers, and then I'd just use something else for the Half Guard, probably something like the Tree Revenants or something like that. Might be worth doing it just so I can get some early practice games in, and there's no harm with that if you've got a friend willing to proxy with you as well. I think it'll just help you start to get your head around the rules. But I'm on the fence of how much value there is actually in that, because you won't really recognise the army, if you know what I mean. You might forget later on. So I'm not quite sure how much will sink in, but I'm considering it. I'm considering it just because there's quite a lot of overlapping special rules, and I do really need to bend my head around them as much as possible. I think the important thing is remember that you're practicing not only using your army, but practice the scenarios. In the event pack, we know what scenarios are coming into play. And, we really need to bend our heads around how you do those games. Deploying everything from, getting some practice games in and working out how best to deploy, in some of those, your army around certain objectives. Get to understand whether your army is good at holding objectives or taking objectives, or whether it's not really about that, whether it's going to be about trying to decimate as much as possible as well and go get that major win, not only on points, but on removal of the opponent, that kind of thing. Because something that comes in on the event pack is in the event of a tie, the point value of destroyed units is the deciding factor. So you have to record all of that at the end. So killing stuff can have an effect, especially if you're confident that you're going to win all 5 games, which I think is the case for winning a tournament. I've certainly not seen anything recent where someone's won a tournament after losing any games, if you know what I mean. So we'll see. Crikey. I think I'm going to do the last but not least, because I want to cover the chat and have a bit of a discussion about hobby and everything that's going off at the moment. But I think the last thing to remember for a tournament, probably I will have missed dozens of things that you could do, and hopefully there's stuff in the chat we can look at. But make life easier with gaming aids. Just make life easy on yourself. Things we've done in the past to help out with, battle reports and things like that. Excuse me. I've still got this horrible cough that won't go away, so give me a second. Right. Rules summary. When you've got your army and your rules are scattered all over the place, get a summary of rules that you really, really need to remember. And one of the things that we did was the idea of cheat sheets. And what that was said, in the hero phase, don't forget to do this. In the movement phase, don't forget to do this. In shooting, don't forget to check these things. So in combat, for instance, there's a lot of rules within the Fire Slayer's army where if I'm within 20 inch of a character, I get a bonus. Just put a little note underneath the heading combat and saying check you're within 20 inch, if you know what I mean. And in the movement phase, don't forget to not move out of that 20 inch, and those kind of things. So write those really simple instructions to yourself. You don't necessarily have to take them to the tournament, but as you're going up towards the tournament, it will help you remember some of the benefits that your army gave. And cheat sheets is probably a bit of a cruel word for it, because there's no cheating in it whatsoever. It's just reminding yourself the rules that are relevant at the point of the game. So for instance, with my Fire Slayers, let's just have a quick look at my HQ. You know what, I knew that. I knew the battery would be gone on that. We'll come back to that. But if we go through the Fire Slayers and what we can do, there's rules that I need to make sure that are in play in the hero phase. For instance, in the first turn, about my deployment. There are also runes in the 2017 handbook, which I can deploy 1 rune per turn on my choice, and I roll a d6. And depending on what I roll, if it's 1 to 5, the rune is in effect on its basic format, and if I roll a 6, it essentially gets overcharged. And that's all sorts of stuff. That's re-rolling hits, or, you know, that's a +1 on rend, or +2 on rend if I overpower it to the entire army. So I definitely need a little reminder that says, in your hero phase, activate a relevant rune, and remember to roll for it as well, you know, because that's the kind of thing that you could get to your end of your turn before you go, you know what, I didn't actually activate a rune this turn. And that would be huge for my army. But there's lots and lots of little simple examples as well. Don't forget. The other thing is markers. Don't forget to make some markers for yourself. That will help. With my army, particularly, you're having both an impact. There are things that have an impact both on your own units, but also on the enemy units. So, for instance, the Auric Halfguard, when you shoot, it's got this little molten-y, rocky special rule. I can't remember the exact words of it now. But what that does is, if you then roll a dice and get more than a 3 or a 4, I think, after causing a hit with that weapon, so not even a wound, it can halve the movement of your enemy's monstrous creatures, and it can also, I think, put them at -1 to hit. So I'm definitely going to have a little marker that I can place next to an opponent's monstrous creature that says half movement, -1 to hit. Because again, it's the kind of thing that you could do that in the first turn, and by the third turn, completely have forgotten that that is in play. So have stuff like that. It's really, really important to think about little markers, again, not only to remind you, but also to remind your opponent, especially if you're affecting your opponent. You can hardly be upset with your opponent if they forget a rule like that. So if they charge their big monster into combat and forgot to apply the -1, that's not really their fault, because it's a rule that belongs to my army, not their army. So anything I can do with markers and cheat sheets to remind myself of all those things, I think would be really, really useful. I think finally, from my perspective, is make time to enjoy it. I've already started to get a little bit like, oh my god, we've got so much to do. Oh, we're going to get it done on time. But at the end of the day, this is going to be a great deal of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. We're all looking to stop in Nottingham at the weekend as well. So we're going to be there for the whole weekend, which means we get to do the whole Warhammer World Saturday night thing with a big crowd that's there. I'm hoping to have lots and lots of fun. So I'm certainly going to try and make time to enjoy it. I think if I can get the prep right, I think if I can get a few games in, and I want to do at least 2 games of each scenario, and you only have to quickly do the math. That's 10 games, because there's 5 scenarios within the book that's going to be in play. I've got to get 10 games in before I go along, and then I'll feel confident, I think, with the army, and I'll probably not need the cheat sheets as much, and hopefully you know, the gaming aids would just be kind of cool little modelled pieces that I only use if I'm starting to get fuddled, which is probably going to happen, isn't it? But yeah, take the time to enjoy it, definitely, because you know, you only live once, and entering a tournament shouldn't be all about stress and pain and agony, should it? It should be about fun, first and foremost. Right, well, I've waffled on for a while. I want to see what people have got to say in the chat, and then I think we'll open it up to questions, because I always say these Monday musings are as much about the Q&A, much about the questions from the community, and they can be everything. It doesn't have to be tournament related or anything. I really hope you found those sort of little tips useful. I mean, that was the fruit of sort of me sitting down for a couple of hours after I got home from work today and just spending a bit of time thinking about what I need to do, scribbling some notes out on the notepad, and really trying to structure my thoughts into how I can get ready for this tournament and what I need to be in place, and trying to remember things that's been useful in the past, like the cheat sheets, like the markers, that really help use those things. And, oh, by the way, the markers, of course, also become a really cool little opportunity for a bit of modelling and extra thematics thing. So I'm going to have these cool little rune stones that I'm going to sculpt, and you know, it might have a cool rune on one side but the rule on the other side, or something like that. I haven't quite decided yet, but it's definitely going to be fun to kind of sculpt some fun little things like that to do as well, because it's not like I haven't got enough to do. Right, what have we got on? So, anybody saying hello? Coleman saying, at Acharya, I was just wondering if there were some new faces in the chat tonight. Would you recommend liking the video, subbing the channel, registering on the website? Are people saying Acharya you're slacking? I think maybe. I don't know. How are we doing for likes? Because that always upsets a bunch of people. 18 likes with 39 watching. That's not bad. That's about half the audience are enjoying the show. So that's not too bad. I can live with that. What have we got going off? Furious George says, off topic, but what do you think of the Battle for Mars box set rumours? Necrons plus Adaptus Mechanicus makes a change from them blooming Space Marines. If that's the case, if that's what's going to happen with Necrons, awesome. Awesome to the max. I've always loved the story of and I can't remember the name of it. It's known the dragon or something like that, isn't it? The celestial dragon that is imprisoned on Mars that they use in some way. I always love that idea, and of course then the connection of that's actually some kind of Necron. Oh, what do they call it? Satan. Catan. I'm going to go with Catan. Shard type creature that's trapped on Mars. So let's see it. Let's actually see that, because anything that would also bring more Adaptus Mechanicus to the table is a boon for me. I absolutely love that army. That's definitely one of my aspirational armies one day, is to do Mechanicus. Reaper28 says, also for more premium videos, search Wargamer Online and sign up for only $2.99 a month. If that's not to your taste, then become a freemium and get access to the free premium videos. And of course, don't forget that I'm just adding on top as well, Reaper, that it gives you access to our lovely forum as well. Oh wait, you get access free to the forum anyway, but you can post and all the rest when you become a freemium member. Retech 1001 says, and if the conversion is made out of other races or Age of Sigmar, is that legal at all? I would dare say, but they do say for conversions and proxies, please contact us. I say if you've used Games Workshop only models and it's to a degree WYSIWYG, as in you can see that the proxy actually represents the stat line of the model you're trying to represent, can't see it being a problem. I suppose a good example would be the thing that Sam's been working on, and he's been posting that up in, let me see if I can find it actually. He's been on the Wargamer Online community, hasn't he? So let me see if we can get this up. We'll run a risk here of not finding it. So let's go back to the community, because of course I was on there. Just a post there, and I think Sam was posting up several photos, wasn't he, of what he's been working on. Let me see, a little bit from Eddie about the zombie side, which is cool. Mark Potter's putting some Gutbusters up. Oh, the screen refresh is so slow tonight, so sorry about it. There you go, that's what I'm looking for. So as you can see, that's probably more green stuff than Citadel model. Officially, Sam will need to contact them and say, I've done this as my leader. Is that okay? I can't imagine them having a problem at all. I mean, he's certainly got proof as well that this is all Games Workshop parts, because he's been old enough and wise enough to take progress shots as well. So should they question, are you sure that great big belly with lovely tiny nipples is not a third-party model? He can simply show them he's sculpted in green stuff. So look at that. By the way, look at Sam's fur and hair he's done there. That's just amazing. That is awesome sculpting. Well done, Sam. Right. Anyway, back to the chat. Acharya says, how do you get the offcuts off the model once you've finished? I tried once and ended up breaking the leg of the model. Generally when I'm building them, I will use plastic glue to build the model, and I will use the tiniest dot of super glue. And what I do, just to make the super glue really, really super tiny, is I will put a little bit of super glue on a piece of paper or card, and then I will use a cocktail stick to dab in the super glue, put a spot of super glue on each foot, and fasten them to the plastic base. And the good news is super glue dries quite brittle, so all you do is get a small blade and you kind of lever it in between the feet and the plastic bit, and generally it just pops off. I rarely have to actually cut the feet off the plastic base, if you know what I mean. Just simply pasting the blade in between is enough leverage to crack the super glue. The good news, the reason I use plastic glue on the model is the plastic glue is a stronger bond than the super glue, especially if you've just used a tiny amount of super glue. So I'm always ensuring that is the joint that's going to give way first. Right, what else have we got going off? Hey, Apollo. Apollo has joined us. Apollo Syndrome says, hi, hope you're well. Yes, I am. Thank you very much, Apollo. I am well indeed. Still recovering like 90% of the UK from this terrible flu that's gone around, but other than that, I'm well. Steve says, at the tourney, you will be given a tray to move your army from game to game. Well, that's cool. That's cool. But you could have your own tray, couldn't you? That's like thematic and looks like your army. So I might do some crazy volcanic base they all stand in. Common says, see how much you've got left to do and how much time is left. You might end up walking into the kitchen one day and your family will wonder what your name was. Exactly. I have my scheduled hobby nights and my scheduled Wargamer Online nights and my scheduled family time, and I have to fit this in amongst the scheduled time. I will not be going over on time. Right, okay then. Acharya says, tournament training montage video, Rocky Team America style. It could be done. Most of it will be Sam blobbing green stuff onto models, and then it will be me applying too much heat to a model, trying to bend it into shape and merely snapping it / melting the model. But we could certainly do a montage. Ralph says, I'll play my first tournament in an Age of Sigmar skirmish tournament. 4 games of 50 renowned per day, 4 different scenarios plus best painted army. You know what? Age of Sigmar skirmish will be called 4 games as well. I assume that's just a 1-day tournament then, because those games are really fast and furious. Even at the, well, actually at the 15 renown mark, yeah, what, you got 4, 5, 6 models, something like that. Big Rich is asking, when's the tournament? That's the 24th to the 25th of March. Acharya is onto it. And, oh, by the way, of course, even whether you are or aren't in the tournament and you are UK based or around the UK at that time, please do come and say hello. We will be there, and we will always make time to say hello. Luke Jones says, wall hack sheet and aim bot sheep, lol. I think I've missed that, but I get your point. Richard says, hope the best, like for all going. Okay. Well, I hope so too. You never know. You never know. I'm not extremely confident. It's going to be a new army for me. I don't know how well they play. I think Fire Slayers can play quite well at 2,000 point mark. But again, the lists I've seen at 2,000 point, I've got 90 of the Berserkers, and I've got nowhere near that amount. And the best I could fit on the table, I think, is realistically 40. So I could take more, but they wouldn't be that great. You know, I'm talking about 90 on the list, and there's still plenty of room to buff them if you like. So we shall see. We shall see. I'm not supremely confident, put it that way. There's going to be no doubt some competitive lists there. There's an interesting point, actually, that's just come up. Originally, this show was titled rather clickbaitingly and controversially, can you enjoy games at a tournament, and or can you have fun at a tournament, I think was the original title. And I decided to get rid of that. Part of me is torn between thinking the competitive aspect of the tournament and making sure my list sticks a chance. But the other part of me just wants to actually revert back to the hobbyist in me and just build a cool looking army and not really look too much at its effectiveness. I think I can find a happy middle ground there, and that's why I abandoned that structure of the show, really. And what I was thinking is no, you know, I mean, the reality is it's 1,000 points. There's not a huge amount of variance I could do within that 1,000 points with this army. So put those thoughts to the back of my mind and just get on with making a great army. So that's what I tried to do. Amit Acharya is saying, do you like social media? Are you addicted to plastic track? Join Wargamer Online community Facebook page, now featuring 12 steps to a tournament preparation. Thank you very much, Acharya. I'm promising things that we can't deliver on, but thank you anyway. What else have we got? Derpimus Maximus says, my dice rolls are gaming aids. Probably even gaming super space Ebola aids. Oh dear, they not go well for you, but you never know. When you have 2+ rerolls and roll double ones. I've done that before a few times. Frost and Fist says, cheat sheets are a great point, Phil. I've recently made myself cards for Admech Canticles and Omnisaur this weekend. It really helped me remember to use the abilities of my new army. Awesome. That's cool. Yeah, that's the thing. Just get that text. Write them in your own words as well, and write them super easy to understand, in gaming terms you recognize. Because I do have to say, sometimes I think you need the battle tone with you and the codex with you to just confirm the wording, but sometimes the wording is confusing, so it's better just to kind of almost just remind yourself what it is they actually do in the simplest possible terms. Void Dragon, thank you very much, Acharya. That is what is in your Frost and Fist has said it as well. There's probably a whole bunch of people screaming at me. Void Dragon, the Catan were Nightbringer, Deceiver, Outsider, and Void Dragon. Oh, I never heard of the Outsider. That's a new one for me. We'll go online. We could use the tray they give us to move our beers around. Bless you, bless you. Are you saying we're going to be drinking beer at that tournament? I am going to be teetotal throughout the entire event because I want to be on my game. That's not true at all from minute one. Right. Where are we at? There's a whole bunch of people laughing about various tray woes and all the rest. Well, we're into the last 5 minutes of the show, so what shall we talk about? Is there any questions for me out there in the community? Is the camera zoomed in a bit much on me today? I look a bit giant, or is it just because I've got used to being a tiny guy in the corner of the screen? I do know, by the way, Jack has been working on these beasties, and I've got them sat next to me staring at me, and they're on Jack's desk at the moment. They're just crazy. They're just amazing models. We've got the Green Stuff World fur mold coming. So he's going to be putting little fur pelts hanging all over these guys just to give them a real sort of wintry, furry theme with little hoods and everything. And I really like the idea. He wants to try and make them a little bit more unique. He also wants to make them fit in with the idea of the frost idea a bit more. I don't think he's going to go he might go white fur, but he's also looking at doing a lot more of the sort of shaggy, dark brown, woolly mammoth kind of look to it and those kind of things. So, cool looking army. Absolutely cool looking army. Ridiculously tiny model count. Perfect for a tournament. Unfortunately, Jack can't make the tournament. He's going to be doing his exams, so he can't do it. Right. Okay, what's going off in the chat? Derpimus Maximus, better to paint red over yellow or yellow over red? Depends what you're trying to achieve. If it's red over yellow, it will certainly make your red quite vibrant, without a doubt. Yellow over red, you're going to have to layer it up, definitely, because the yellow depends on how deep the red is, if you know what I mean. It's going to take a bit of work to come up to colour. So you'll have to, thin coats and layer it up to give it strength. If you're talking about, say, it depends on the object. So actually, Derpimus, why don't you, if you could just say what you're actually painting. If it was like a sphere or an orb, and I wanted the outside to be red transitioning to yellow in the centre, I would definitely do yellow over red, but what I might do is just pre-shade a white dot at the very top of it. And then as I do the yellow layers, the very top will be quite vibrant for the final highlight, so it's not fighting against the red, if you know what I mean. Which I know seems a little bit counterintuitive, but just a couple of very thin layers of white on the highest highlight before you then put the yellow on really makes the yellow dot vibrant, if you're looking for contrast, that is. Scott says, when is the cult going to see a tournament? We are looking at a 40k tournament next. That's what we want to do. We're going through the timings and what's available. So soon. They are progressing. I am actually working on them. Did a bit of work on them this weekend. Should have mentioned, actually, I'm also trying to finish that army off as well. It's not finished. I had to do some other stuff this weekend, so it kind of got in the way. But soon, and that's the important point. And I do want to get some 40k games in while we're doing all of this as well. Furious Josh says, how fast can I make the WGO logo spin? As fast as I like. Sometimes faster, sometimes slower. If you want me to make it change now, I'm not going to do that. How about a show in the near future with more of the WGO hub crew, i.e. more than one? Wink wink Elster Nation. Yes, that's a good idea actually. We should get you on. I am hopefully going to fit in some Wednesday night shows in the next few weeks. And the idea is to probably get as many as 6 people on those shows, I think, Elster Nation, of which, of course, you'd be more than welcome. But I certainly want to I'm trying out some new technology at the weekend to try and improve the sort of the 6-group shot. Where there's some sort of conferencing technology I'm looking into that might do a better job than you get with things like Google Hangouts and all the rest. So I want to try that tech out first, but as soon as we do, I want to do some sort of Wednesday night hobby hangout kind of, I suppose, a visual podcast, for want of a better word, where we'll chew the cud over different subjects. So it's not just me droning on my own on a Monday night. We could do some stuff on Wednesday. And Elster Nation, of course, you'd be welcome, along with other hobbyists who would want to join in as well. As long as you can keep it clean, you're on the show. Emil says, these are not the droids I'm looking for, and started shouting Space Marines at everybody. Derpimus Maximus says, oh, you're painting Space Marines. Well, there you go. Well, if it's, yes, yellow over red, red over yellow. If it's like stripes and stuff like that, then red over yellow every time. So if you're doing sort of a red and yellow hazard stripe or areas like that, red over yellow every time. If you're really going to try and do it the other way around, so if it's a yellow symbol over red, then, as I said, try a first thin layer of white just to tone the red down before the yellow goes on. That would be my advice. I certainly do things like that with spot highlighting on some stuff, and it feels horribly counterintuitive when you put that first coat on. So, for instance, if I was working on the lights for my Zone Mortalis, and that was sort of a bright green on a dark green background, and because of the way I was doing it, it was kind of almost like an OSL effect. So what I did was the dark green with a white dot on, and then admittedly I was airbrushing, but a white dot in the center, and then did the light green over the white dot just for that real bright, vibrant, and what I was looking for was like the element in the bulb. But while they all had white dots on it, it looked dreadful. And then as soon as the green went on, it looked amazing. Right, Space Marines. MCM 1966 says, evening, all better late than never. You do indeed made it, but you made it just as I'm about to say good night to everybody and wish everybody well. I tell you what's worth checking. We were so close to, and in fact, I don't think it's happened, which would be really, really unfortunate. Let's see if I can get to it. It's not going to happen. The reason I was checking is I was just checking on our subscriber level, but thinking about it, we've not had any notifications during the show, have we? We are at 886 subscribers. So there has actually been a couple during the show, but the notifications haven't popped up, so apologies to anybody who has. I was hoping for 2 more subscribers during the show, so we could have had 8,888 subscribers, just because I love numbers when they line up like that. But it hasn't happened. We're 2 subscribers off, so never mind. We were almost there. So, anyway, that's one of those little milestones that I love, things like that. Marty Milligan says, at Derpimus Maximus, I have seen a red glaze airbrushed over yellow that make a really nice red. Yes, well, that would indeed. The red over the yellow will make it very vibrant. And Steve says, in a 6-group shot, I can have a deaf background, lol. As long as you've got a green screen, mate. Or you could paint a deaf background, couldn't you? Paolo says, bye all, be safe. He's got to head off, so bye there, mate. Thanks for joining us. Reaper says, do a Blood Raven painting tutorial. I did say we'd have a look at doing something like that, didn't we? Sooner rather than later. I've definitely got some models we can do it. I did change direction this weekend when I was reviewing the colour shift paints. I was going to do like the back of spoons and stuff like that, which I've done in the past, and then I remembered that I got a bunch of those old. Do you remember those marines that were given out when you do like painting in the shop for the first time, and they were like the really basic marines where you just clip the blood? Kind of figured it would be fun to show it on an actual model, because some of them almost self-shade. Not a big fan of just doing it without the shading, but indeed because of the colour shift they kind of self-shade. So I actually sprayed up some of the old marines. That was quite funny. Right, what else is going off? Drifted off there. Dirpimus Maximus says, I'll be doing a whole arm of it single colours, but since I've been priming with black, I've been wondering if using a primer in a different colour would make it easier. Personally, if there's a lot of bright colours or single colour swap overs and stuff like that, consider priming in grey. If you want my personal advice, I wouldn't use the Mechanica standard grey primer. I would use Halford's grey over that any day, because the Mechanica standard grey isn't really a primer. It's a really thick paint, even with a great deal of shaking. If you have a airbrush, then I cannot recommend the I still don't know how to pronounce that. Styrenes. I'm going to actually send an email to Badger and just say, how do you actually pronounce that? But that is the Badger airbrush primer, and it is stunning. The grey, it's amazing. It's so thin when it goes on, but it's such a solid coat, especially if you give it 24 hours to cure. It makes a massive difference. I've seen people testing it and not giving it the proper cure time before they start painting on it, so do let it cure. Right, okay. Because getting the yellow even with a coat over white over black was soul destroying. I certainly can imagine. So try grey though. I mean, it's just that one step closer, isn't it? And Reaper says 2 more subs, and this is the problem with the machine. It's now threatening to do an update. I tell you what, at 6 minutes past 10, we're over the hour. One of the things that I'm considering as well is if we do one of these Wednesday shows, it might be just like a once a month show. So it will be almost like a once a month podcasty show or something like that. If we do it, it will probably be a 2-hour show on a Wednesday as well, because we'll just probably go longer, because when you've got like 6 people talking, you've definitely got the space to be able to run for a couple of hours. And it may be the case of it's kind of almost we do a bit of hobby while we do it as well on a Wednesday. I've certainly got every Wednesday night between now and the tournament, I'm going to be getting some hobby done. So why not just kick the cameras on, see if people want to join me for a chat, and we'll do some shows. And Ralph says it is Stein Res. Yeah, why don't they just call it primer? Okay, Big Rich says good night all. Good night, Big Rich. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to everybody who supports us. I just want to say that before I go. There's a whole bunch of ways you can support us at Wargamer Online. So you can anything from subscribing, liking and commenting on our Facebook and our YouTube videos. Check out www.wargameronline.com. Check out the website, links below. Link is below actually, thinking about it. That we have premium membership for $2.99 a month, where you can get lots of premium content and all the rest of the wonderful stuff. And thank you to everybody as well who donated. We had some cracking donations over the last few weeks as well, which has given us a really good start to the year. So thank you very much all. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope you picked something up along the way. Even if you're not really into tournaments, I think a few of those things help out along the way. Planning out your hobby for the month, working what you want to get done, keeping motivated, those things all help. So hopefully you found it useful. I've really enjoyed having you wonderful people along on the chat. It's great to see all the names on the chat and catch up with everyone. I think the Wednesday shows will be lovely, because maybe we can get some of these people from the chat on the shows as well. So let's give it a go. Good night all. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me, and we will see you again. There's even a possibility of a 1-hour show this Wednesday, but that's a slightly different thing. We've still got one last thing to launch on the website, because last year I mentioned several new things we were launching, like the forum and all the rest. There's one last thing to launch. We've just had a few logistical issues, but there's a possibility of us doing that on Wednesday. So keep an eye out on YouTube, because the notification will come up, but it won't be until Wednesday until I know whether there's going to be a show or not, because I need to know whether I've finished work on time. So, right, good night all. Thank you very much for joining me, and we will possibly see you on Wednesday. If not, Sam will maybe doing a show on Saturday. Look out for Sam, see what he's doing, and I'll definitely be back on Monday in any case. All right, thank you very much all. Good night. Thanks for joining me. Bye.